Donald Trump creates Liberation Day, a make-believe holiday, to decipher how much we will fuck over the longest-standing friends, including NATO partners and Canada.
With unemployment rising by 1.1 percentage points to 13.9% in November of 2024, a one-month difference. This marking the largest year-over-year increase among major age groups, more than double the national average.
So while the carbon tax might not be sufficient in order to make that change and keep citizens with checks in their pockets and with groceries, affordability, and housing, it was a solution. Now, is it being enacted? No, and we need to find other solutions. Because it thoroughly highlights challenges facing youth in Canada and the solutions to what lies ahead. Hear our voices, hear us now is more than just a plea for help. It is a demand from thousands of youth unanimously agreeing action needs to be taken. Certain leadership in Canada have folded towards polarizing rhetoric. We see south of the border. Canadian values uplift one another and strive to find the best of both arguments in the strongest solution, because that's what it means to be Canadian. These times are tumultuous, to say the least. Donald Trump creates Liberation Day, a make-believe holiday, to decipher how much we will fuck over the longest-standing friends, including NATO partners and Canada, in spite of his own citizens. Look youth in the eye. A series of backpedaling has driven young Canadians across the country to do your jobs in critically analyzing what needs to be done now. Unfinished business like online legislation, laws surrounding artificial intelligence, and Youth Climate Corps have not been delivered. Many policymakers assume that because climate change is no longer discussed widely, the crisis has ended. In reality, CO2 levels in the atmosphere are the highest they've ever been in human history. Clean water? In Canada? Apparently not. Boiled water advisories still plague Indigenous communities decades after promises to fix them. What is going on? These are only a few of the key points made in this report that needs to be implemented right now and for the future. The methods at which we address problems in 2025 must be pivoted in order to meet the needs of evolving technology and nuance in the world. We are here to ensure Canada deserves youth. I'm glad to be standing beside the strongest representation of young Canadian leadership, and I'm pleased to pass it to the chair of the National Youth Roundtable on Legislation and my dear colleague, Cabria Leaks-Kotick.
My name is Cabria Leaks-Kotick, and firstly I'd like to thank the young politicians of Canada for entrusting me with the role and responsibilities of the chair of the National Youth Roundtable on Legislation. Right now in Canada, 850,000 youth are not in employment, education, or training. The youth unemployment rate has now reached an all-time high of 14.4% in December of 2024. This according to Statistics Canada. With unemployment rising by 1.1 percentage points to 13.9% in November of 2024, a one-month difference. This marking the largest year-over-year increase among major age groups, more than double the national average. We look to our racialized youth facing even greater barriers. Young Black youth are experiencing an unemployment rate of 24.4%. This compared to only 14% of non-racialized youth. These are not just statistics, this is a crisis. Young workers are finding themselves trapped in precarious, low-wage jobs, making financial independence an impossible goal. If youth are struggling economically, Canada is struggling economically. Our recommendations to address this look to the need for access and reduction of financial barriers to education. We need to ensure financial aid reflects the true cost of education, and increasing federal and provincial funding for the needs-based grants is essential. But education alone is not going to fix this. It's not enough. We also need to build stronger pathways between education and employment. Internships, co-op programs, and apprenticeship opportunities must be expanded, ensuring that young people aren't just filling jobs, but also building long-term careers. This isn't just about youth, it's about Canada's future, our economic growth, and our stability. Our recommendations also cover the creation of a federal youth entrepreneurship fund to provide startup grants, mentorship, and business development training, with a particular focus on supporting racialized, low-income, and other marginalized youth. By fostering innovation and self-sufficiency, This initiative can create new opportunities for employment and opportunities that will reduce the reliance on precarious work.
And that there's a really strong amount of regulatory practices and innovation that goes into the same amount that we're emitting. When it comes to our economy and fueling our economy, Canada still needs oil and gas to survive, and that's how it is. But that doesn't mean that we cannot take some of the resources that we're putting forward into non-renewables and consider how we can innovate, create energy in a green and sustainable practice. Absolutely. I think on the carbon tax, it's become such a point of polarization in Canada. I think I mentioned this in my speech. Polarization is not a Canadian value. That's not something we do here. And I think, unfortunately, from Americanization and some unfortunate influences, it's become something that's happened in the House of Commons. That's not the value of Canada. That's not the value of the future. We need to work together to find solutions to climate change. That's the bottom line. So while the carbon tax might not be sufficient in order to make that change and keep citizens with checks in their pockets and with groceries, affordability, and housing, it was a solution. Now, is it being enacted? No, and we need to find other solutions, because if the citizens cannot continue with it, then we have to figure out a new solution to deal with it.
What do you think of the different parties' approach so far when it comes to trying to reach young Canadians? I'm curious what stands out as things that are working, where you feel like the parties are actively trying to reach young people, speak to them, and what's not? Where do you see that there's a gap?
I appreciate the question. I think, well, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a strategy to try to reach young people. And I think I'm glad, regardless, that politicians are trying to reach out. I caution politicians to be very careful about what they say, and then if they do end up getting elected in their ridings, what they actually carry through in doing. Making sure you're meeting the promises that you're promising and not necessarily living up to. But I think finding new strategies to reach young people, especially if it's coming from a creditable source, like a local electoral district association or a party leader, is a really strong way to motivate young people to show up to the polls. I think it is fair game for candidates to use these different tactics in order to try to get young people to participate democratically. That's why we have these mediums, virtually, in person, social media, etc. And I think if you can reach a new generation in a new, nuanced and innovative capacity, that is absolutely incredible.